We don't need no water, let the motherfucker burn, motherfucker.
Sam, there's a lot of crazy shit going on in the Gulf of Mexico. Oil has been spewing out, I think, at this point, almost 50 days. We're wondering what's going to happen during hurricane season, so we get Dr. Kaku on the phone.
Everybody's worried about a fire hurricane. Patrice Oneal, comedian friend of the Opie and Anthony show, was in studio. He ended up getting into it a little bit with Dr. Michio Kaku. Didn't think that Dr. Kaku was able to admit when he didn't know something. There was a whole discussion. Are you worried about the fire hurricanes? Well, if you are, then listen to this.
Number 2.
Dr. Michio Kaku.
Michio Kaku.
Hello.
Hi. How are you, sir? We saw you on TV last night talking about the oil spill, and we certainly wanted to get your take on our show as well, considering you're a friend of the show.
Yes, now, using a nuclear device, how viable is this?
It's not a good suggestion at all. First of all, it'll make the area radioactive. It'll release radioactive iodine, cesium, strontium, which will contaminate the area for decades, if not centuries, depending upon, the flow of ocean currents. And during hurricane season, you can imagine that tar balls will be shot into the air that are radioactive.
Radioactive tar.
Yeah, can you imagine radioactive tar balls winding up in people's swimming pools?
It sounds like a horror movie, Dr. Kaku.
It sure does. Now, with these hurricanes, we're going to have tar balls flying around?
Hurricanes will actually grab water several hundred feet below the surface and waft it up into the sky. If a hurricane comes into the Gulf from the western direction, they spin counterclockwise. So if it's west of the oil leak, the counterclockwise motion will then take this water laden with oil, loft it into the air, and dump it all over the south.
Wow, how far inland could that actually take tar and oil?
Oh, potentially hundreds of miles inland.
Hundreds of miles. So people on the coast that are worrying and people inland that are saying we have nothing to worry about might actually have something to worry about.
That's right. They could have radioactive oil raining down on their hair, on their barbecue pits, on their rooftops. It's gonna be a mess. Think of all the lawsuits coming out of this thing.
Dr. Michio Kaku, what do you think about this whole thing? Now, I know we've heard your point on this 2012 end of the world kind of thing. We're seeing a lot of man-made and natural disasters happening lately. I know you're a man of science, but spiritually, how are you feeling about this?
Well, look at Mother Earth, okay? She rocks the planet almost like every month with a gigantic magnitude 7, even magnitude 8 earthquake, but they happen underwater. They happen away from the television cameras. Mm-hmm. So Mother Earth gets rocked all the time, but we never really notice these things. Only when we get rocked. So we are so arrogant. We're so arrogant that we think that when our little domain is rocked, then it means, oh my God, Chicken Little, we think that the whole world is falling apart.
Dr. Kaku,
great point.
Another thing I want to ask that I've been very curious about, how come a natural disaster has never caused a fissure in the earth that has leaked oil into the ocean?
Well, they have. I mean, in the sense that we've had a blowout like this before, but they usually happen at 200 feet.
I mean, like an earthquake. Let's say an earthquake happened, and a couple of plates move, and lets out some oil from a deposit that maybe hasn't even been drilled, and all of a sudden you're seeing oil spurting up into the Gulf or anywhere else where there might have been this earthquake. How come that's never happened? We haven't seen that.
The reason is the deposits of oil are actually pretty rare. You don't find them everywhere at all. Only a tiny, tiny fraction of the Earth's surface actually has large deposits of, commercially viable oil. And if you then superimpose upon that the fault lines, you find that the fault lines and the oil deposits usually don't match. So we're in a situation where we think there's oil everywhere, but actually if you're a shale oil engineer, you know that it's only a tiny fraction of the Earth's surface has large oil deposits, and they happen not to be where there's lots of seismic activity. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we would have this.
Yes, that would be oil all over the place.
You forgot to ask about the fire cane. What's the possibility? You get a hurricane, it scoops up the oil, then you get a little, I don't know, lightning strike, and next thing you know, you got a hurricane that's on fire. Is this possible?
Well, a little bit unlikely in the sense that the oil is an oil-water mixture called an emulsion. Some people think that, well, oil separates from water, in which case you should be able to burn off the oil. Well, that's partially true. But how can we have so many plumes of water going down 22 miles that are 22 miles long? Why is that? Because water and oil do mix sometimes, creating what is called an emulsion. Look at mayonnaise. Look at lotions. Look at your kitchen.
This fucking guy is smart as shit. Fuck! You motherfucker! Man, go on Jeopardy, nigga. What you doing?
Patrice.
Jesus Christ!
This is Dr. Michio Kaku.
He's a physicist.
Oh,
fucking guy is phenomenal.
Dr. Kaku, I want to apologize for Patrice Oneal's language.
Yes,
it gets a little
This shit's
salty.
prodigious as hell, motherfucker.
Yeah, it gets a little salty with his language.
He's a comedian. We don't really know much about him. He's playing in the area. He came in to do a set, and I didn't know he was going to use that language,
yes,
sir.
You've really impressed him, and that's how he shows his that he is indeed impressed with you. We apologize for the language.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, sir. Please, sorry.
So it is an
emulsion like mayonnaise. All right.
That will not just burn randomly with maybe a lightning strike.
That's right. And also, by the way, the nuke option that I talked about on the Keith Olbermann show last night is also not a good idea, because what happens if you detonate a hydrogen bomb underground, okay, what happens is you create an underground sphere, a sphere of vaporized dirt, a hollow sphere. The sides, the walls of the sphere get glassified.
Right.
Sand. So you have this glassified hollow sphere underneath the ground, which then eventually collapses, giving you a gigantic hole. Now, the people who want to nuke the oil well think that the oil well will be glassified and therefore sealed up. But the walls are unstable. Eventually, the pressure, 2,000 pounds per square inch on the bottom of the ocean, will cause a cave-in, and then more oil will spill out potentially and create even more places where oil can seep into the environment.
But what do you think about? Are they?
Fire. Big time.
Are they going to get it cleaned up, or is the oil just going to keep spilling out like a whole bunch of Crisco or something?
Well, let's hope that the capping procedure, which they're doing right now, even as we speak, let's hope it works. However, a month ago it failed because of methane crystals that got into the siphon and jammed it. So now they're putting hot water down the pipe, and we're waiting and seeing. We're waiting and seeing whether or not the hot water will dissolve the methane crystals so that they can siphon off some of this water. Now, it's not a plug. It's a very loose-fitting cap. So oil will, in fact, splurt out the outside. It's not a perfect seal. That's why they have to use a diamond wire cutter to get a nice, clean cut in order to get a nice seal. But, we're just keeping our fingers crossed right now.
Sir, are they talking to you about this? Like, are they coming to people like you to help? Are they calling you?
Oh, well, put it this way. Everybody and their brother now are making suggestions about how to cap that. Well, I get hundreds in my email. However, many of these procedures will, in fact, work, but they work at 200 feet. That's the key. The key to the whole puzzle is what works at 200 feet does not work at 5,000 feet, where we have 2,000 pounds of pressure. Think of putting a car on every square inch of your chest. How long would you last if you put a car on every square inch?
Yeah, around only a few weeks or something.
Oh, Chip.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is high pressure. So all these suggestions that I get in my email, a lot of them will in fact work at 200 feet.
Well, what's your idea, sir?
Well, let me give you an example. Okay, one person said, why not put tires inside the leak that inflate?
Yes, we saw that.
The pressure
from the inside. Well, at 200 feet it might work, but at 5,000 feet, where the pressure is great, the tires will collapse. How do you inflate a tire when the outside pressure is 2,000 pounds per square inch?
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
But what is your suggestion?
Well, my suggestion is that when the thing happened, Obama should have called out the Navy at that point, the military.
That's what I said.
And instead of putting BP in charge, he should have just removed them, and he should have had a panel of some of the best minds in the petrochemical industry. You know, when Gorbachev was faced with the Chernobyl accident back in 1986. He had a raging fire at a nuclear power plant. You know what Gorbachev did? He didn't set up a committee. He sent in the Red Air Force.
Yeah.
Air Force. It was the Red Air Force that finally stopped that raging fire at Chernobyl.
Oh, some of those poor guys.
That's what Obama should have done. Called in the military, brought in the best minds, and then these procedures at 200 feet, they all work. They've tried seven procedures. They all work at 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
None of them work at 5,000 feet.
How much oil do you think is there? How much oil can you possibly think is just there? Can it just run out?
Possibly enough to last for years. Can you imagine this oil well spill